My wife said, "Charity gala with my work friends. Spouses aren't invited." I replied, "Do good." Then I called her office. No gala existed. That's how it started. Simple as that. Diana Mercer, my wife of 12 years, standing in our kitchen wearing that black cocktail dress I bought her for Christmas, telling me about corporate philanthropy and evening obligations while checking her lipstick in the microwave's reflection. "It's one of those networking things, Rob," she explained, adjusting her earrings with the practiced precision of someone who'd rehearsed this conversation. "You know how these corporate events are, boring speeches about quarterly donations and tax write-offs. You'd hate it." She was right about one thing. I would hate it, but not for the reasons she imagined. I'm Robert Mercer, civil engineer, 39 years old, and I've spent the better part of 2 decades building bridges. Real ones, made of steel and concrete, designed to carry weight and withstand pressure. The irony wasn't lost on me that my marriage had become the kind of structure I'd never design, all facade, no foundation. "Which charity?" I asked, because that's what husbands do. We ask follow-up questions that demonstrate interest in our wives' professional lives. "Children's literacy," Diana said without missing a beat. "Philip's really passionate about education initiatives." Philip Ashworth, Diana's boss at Morrison Associates Public Relations. 43 years old, divorced, drives a BMW that costs more than most people's houses, and apparently passionate about education initiatives. The same Philip who'd been calling Diana's cell phone at increasingly inappropriate hours over the past 3 months. "That's nice," I said. "What time will you be home?" "Late. These things always run long. Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and walked out of our house in Brookline with the confidence of someone who believed her husband was exactly as naive as she needed him to be. I waited exactly 3 minutes after her car pulled out of the driveway. Then I called Morrison Associates. "Good evening, Morrison Associates. This is Jennifer speaking." "Hi, Jennifer. This is Rob Mercer, Diana's husband. She forgot her medication at home, and I wanted to drop it off at the charity gala tonight. Could you give me the address?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer, but I don't show any company events scheduled for tonight. Are you sure it's today?" "The Children's Literacy Fundraiser? With Philip Ashworth?" "Mr. Ashworth isn't in the office today, and I don't see anything on the corporate calendar. Would you like me to transfer you to Diana's voicemail?" "No, that's all right. I must have mixed up the dates." I hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. 12 years of marriage, and this was the first time Diana had constructed such an elaborate fiction. Either she was getting better at lying, or I was getting better at catching her. I opened my laptop and did what any reasonable husband would do in 2024. I checked social media. Diana's Instagram showed nothing recent, but her colleagues were more generous with their digital footprints. Tara Williams from the Morrison office had posted a story 40 minutes ago. "Gallery opening in the North End. Amazing contemporary pieces." Simone Chen, Diana's closest friend at work, had shared a photo of wine glasses with the caption, "Art and Culture Night with the Best People." The geotag showed Vivienne Dupont Gallery on Hanover Street. I sat in my kitchen for another 10 minutes, weighing options. I could pretend this conversation never happened. I could wait for Diana to come home and ask casual questions about the literacy fundraiser. I could hire a private investigator and gather evidence like a reasonable person planning for divorce proceedings. Instead, I put on my jacket and drove to the North End. The Vivienne Dupont Gallery occupied a converted brownstone between a coffee shop and an Italian restaurant. Through the large front windows, I could see well-dressed people holding wine glasses and examining paintings, with the studied concentration of individuals who mistake price tags for artistic merit. I parked across the street and watched for 15 minutes. The crowd was exactly what you'd expect from a Morrison Associates networking event: expensive haircuts, designer handbags, and the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having to check your bank balance before making purchases. Then I saw her. Diana stood in front of a large, abstract painting, her head tilted at that angle she used when pretending to understand modern art. She wore the same black dress, the same earrings, the same lipstick she'd applied in our kitchen an hour ago. Philip Ashworth stood beside her, his arm around her waist. Not the casual, professional proximity of colleagues attending a work function. This was the comfortable intimacy of two people who'd practiced this particular arrangement. His hand rested on her hip with the easy familiarity of ownership, and when she laughed at something he whispered in her ear, she leaned into him like a woman who'd found exactly where she belonged. I watched them for another 5 minutes, documenting details with the methodical precision I used for structural assessments. The way Philip's thumb traced small circles on Diana's dress, how she touched his chest when she laughed, the fact that neither of them spent more than 30 seconds actually looking at any artwork. Then I got out of my car and walked into the gallery. The space was larger inside than it appeared from the street, with white walls and strategic lighting designed to make everything look more important than it actually was. A woman with silver hair and expensive jewelry approached me immediately. "Good evening, I'm Vivienne Dupont. Welcome to our opening." "Rob Mercer," I said. "Impressive collection." "Thank you. Are you familiar with contemporary abstract expressionism?" "I'm more of a structural realist myself. I like things that serve a purpose." Vivienne smiled with the practiced warmth of someone who'd spent decades managing artistic egos and wealthy patrons. How refreshing. Most of our guests tonight are from Morrison Associates, public relations people. They appreciate the networking opportunities. I imagine they do. I accepted a glass of wine from a passing server and began moving through the crowd toward Diana and Philip. They hadn't noticed me yet, too absorbed in their private conversation to pay attention to new arrivals. Eleanor Cross, a woman I recognized from Diana's office Christmas parties, spotted me first. "Rob, what are you doing here? Diana said you were staying home tonight." "Change of plans?" I said. "Thought I'd surprise her." Eleanor's expression shifted from confusion to something approaching alarm. She glanced toward Diana and Philip, then back at me, clearly calculating the social mathematics of the situation. "Oh," she said. "Well, that's nice." I continued walking. Diana and Philip were standing in front of a painting that looked like someone had thrown primary colors at a canvas and charged $50,000 for the privilege. Philip was explaining something about brushwork and emotional resonance, while Diana nodded with the earnest attention of a woman who discovered that intellectual appreciation could be surprisingly attractive. I stopped directly behind them and cleared my throat. "Interesting piece," I said. Diana turned around, and I watched her face cycle through recognition, shock, and something approaching panic in the span of 2 seconds. Philip's arm dropped from her waist like he'd been electrocuted. "Rob," Diana said, "what are you doing here?" "I'm her husband," I said to Philip, extending my hand. "Rob Mercer. I don't think we've been properly introduced." Philip Ashworth had the kind of handshake that belonged to a man who'd spent his career convincing people to buy things they didn't need. Firm grip, direct eye contact, and a smile that suggested we were all friends here, just a minor misunderstanding between reasonable adults. "Philip Ashworth," he said. "Diana's mentioned you, of course. I didn't realize you were interested in contemporary art." "I'm interested in a lot of things," I said, "especially when they involve my wife." The conversation around us had developed that particular quality that happens when people sense drama, but haven't quite figured out what they're witnessing. Voices lowered. Glances became more frequent. Eleanor Cross had positioned herself near enough to hear everything while maintaining plausible deniability about eavesdropping. Diana recovered faster than I'd expected. 12 years of marriage had taught her how to read my moods, and she recognized that I was operating in observation mode rather than confrontation mode. For now. "Rob, this is such a surprise," she said, moving closer to me and away from Philip. "I thought you had that project deadline tonight." Finished early, I said. Lucky for me, since I would have missed this fascinating discussion about brushwork and emotional resonance. Philip's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Diana was just telling me about your engineering work, building bridges, isn't it? Among other things. I also specialize in structural integrity, identifying weak points before they become serious problems. How practical, Philip said. I find it useful. For instance, I can usually tell when something isn't built to last just by looking at it. Diana's hand found my arm. Rob, maybe we should... Oh, don't let me interrupt, I said. I'm curious about this piece. I gestured toward the abstract painting. What do you think it represents, Philip? Philip launched into an explanation about postmodern interpretations of urban alienation while I watched Diana's reflection in the gallery window. She was checking her phone, probably calculating how quickly she could extract herself from this situation. Fascinating, I said when Philip finished. Diana, what's your interpretation? I think, Diana said carefully, that sometimes things aren't what they appear to be at first glance. Interesting perspective. Speaking of appearances, how was the literacy fundraiser? The question landed like a small grenade in the middle of our polite conversation. Philip stopped talking. Diana's grip on my arm tightened. Eleanor Cross, who'd been pretending to examine a nearby sculpture, turned toward us with undisguised interest. The what? Philip asked. The Children's Literacy Fundraiser, I said. The charity gala Diana attended tonight. The one where spouses weren't invited. Diana's face went through another series of rapid calculations. She could admit the lie, which would require explaining why she'd lied. She could maintain the fiction, which would require Philip's cooperation. Or she could try to redirect the conversation entirely. She chose option 3. Rob, you're being embarrassing, she said. This is a work event. I thought it was a charity gala. It's both. The gallery supports literacy programs. How wonderful, said Vivienne DuPont, who'd appeared beside us with the perfect timing of someone who'd been monitoring the situation from across the room. I wasn't aware we were supporting literacy tonight, but I'm always happy to contribute to worthy causes. Philip cleared his throat. Diana, perhaps we should check on the Morrison Group. I think Tom wanted to discuss the Henderson account. Excellent idea, Diana said. Rob, I'll call you later. Actually, I said, I think I'll stay. This is fascinating. Vivienne, could you tell me more about the gallery's charitable work? Vivienne's eyes sparkled with the delight of someone who'd recognized that she was witnessing premium entertainment. Of course. Though I must admit, most of our charitable contributions are tax-related rather than event-specific. We don't typically host fundraisers. How interesting, I said. Diana, you might want to let the Morrison office know. There seems to be some confusion about tonight's agenda. Diana looked like she wanted to disappear into the abstract painting behind her. Philip had developed the expression of a man who'd suddenly realized he was standing in the middle of a minefield. Rob, Diana said quietly, can we talk privately? I think we're past private conversations, I said. But I'm curious about something, Philip. How long have you and Diana been working on literacy initiatives together? It's a recent development, Philip said. How recent? Rob, Diana said sharply. Stop. Stop what? I'm just trying to understand my wife's charitable interests. It's wonderful that she's found such a passionate advocate for education. Eleanor Cross had given up any pretense of looking at art and was now openly staring at our group. 2 other Morrison employees had drifted closer, drawn by the magnetic pull of workplace drama unfolding in real time. You know what I find most interesting about contemporary art? I said, addressing the growing audience. It's all about interpretation. Take this piece, for example. I gestured toward the abstract painting. Philip sees urban alienation. Diana sees hidden meanings. I see expensive chaos masquerading as sophistication. Art is subjective, Vivienne said diplomatically. So is marriage, I said. Diana, what time did you say this literacy fundraiser was supposed to end? Diana's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression shifted from embarrassment to something approaching panic. I need to take this, she said. Of course you do, I said. Philip, while she's handling that urgent literacy business, maybe you could explain how these charity events typically work. Do spouses usually attend, or is exclusion part of the fundraising strategy? Philip was saved from answering by Diana's return. She'd moved 10 feet away to take her call, but her voice had carried enough for me to hear fragments. Not supposed to be here, and handle this later. Everything all right? I asked when she rejoined our group. Fine, Diana said. Rob, I really think we should go. But we just got here, I said. Besides, I'm learning so much about charitable giving. Philip, do you support other causes, or is literacy your primary passion? I believe in supporting various community initiatives, Philip said carefully. How admirable. Diana's lucky to work with someone who shares her values. We work well together, Philip said. I'm sure you do. Diana's always been good at collaboration. The conversation had developed the rhythm of a tennis match, each exchange carrying more subtext than the previous one. Diana was checking her phone again. Eleanor Cross was texting furiously, probably updating the entire Morrison office about the evening's entertainment. Rob, Diana said, I have an early meeting tomorrow. We should really go. Of course, I said. Philip, it's been enlightening meeting you. I hope we'll have opportunities to talk more about Diana's work and your shared interests. I'm sure we will, Philip said. I shook his hand again, noting that his palm had developed a light sheen of perspiration despite the gallery's air conditioning. Diana, I said, ready to go home and tell me about the literacy fundraiser? Diana's smile looked like it had been carved from ice. Absolutely. We walked toward the gallery exit together, leaving Philip standing in front of the abstract painting like a man who'd suddenly lost his ability to interpret contemporary art. Wonderful evening, Vivian called after us. Thank you for adding such dimension to our opening. The drive home took 12 minutes. Diana spent 11 of them staring out the passenger window while I navigated through Cambridge traffic and waited for her to construct whatever explanation she thought might salvage the situation. You embarrassed me, she finally said as we turned onto our street. I embarrassed you? That was my workplace, Rob. Those people have to respect me on Monday morning. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. Respect is earned, Diana, usually through honesty. Don't lecture me about honesty. Then don't lie to me about charity galas. We sat in the car for another moment, both of us calculating our next moves. Diana was probably deciding how much truth she could afford to reveal. I was wondering how long she'd been practicing this particular deception. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said quietly. What wasn't supposed to happen like this? Philip and I, it's complicated. Adultery usually is. Diana turned toward me for the first time since we'd left the gallery. It's not adultery. What would you call it? A connection. Someone who understands what I need professionally. And what you need professionally requires lying to your husband and attending art gallery openings with your boss's arm around your waist. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. Explain it to me. Diana opened her car door. Can we please go inside? I don't want to have this conversation in the driveway. We walked into our house. The same house we'd bought 7 years ago when Diana got promoted to senior account manager and I landed the contract for the new Harbor Bridge project. The same house where we'd planned our future over morning coffee and Sunday crossword puzzles. Diana went straight to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of wine. Large glass, expensive bottle. Philip's been mentoring me, she said without looking at me. Is that what we're calling it? He's helping me understand the political dynamics of the agency. how to position myself for partnership consideration. And this mentoring requires intimate physical contact? Rob, you're making this sound sordid. I opened my phone and started the voice recording app. Not because I was planning to use it against her, but because I'd learned that people reveal more truth when they think they're being spontaneous. Diana, I called your office tonight. There was no charity gala. I know. So you lied to me. I simplified the situation. You constructed an elaborate fiction about children's literacy fundraising to cover the fact that you were attending a social event with your boss. Diana took a long sip of wine. Philip thought it would be better if spouses didn't attend. It's a professional networking opportunity. Professional networking that requires him to put his arm around your waist? You're exaggerating. I'm observing. There's a difference. Diana set down her wine glass and looked at me directly for the first time since we'd come home. Rob, I need you to understand something. My career is at a critical point. The decisions I make in the next 6 months will determine whether I become a partner or spend the rest of my professional life managing other people's accounts. And Philip is helping you make these decisions? He's showing me how the business really works, the relationships that matter, the social dynamics that determine who gets promoted and who gets passed over. By taking you to art gallery openings and putting his hands on you, by including me in the inner circle, by treating me like someone who belongs at his level. I stopped the recording and looked at my wife, really looked at her. Diana was beautiful at 36, the kind of woman who drew attention in restaurants and made other wives check their own appearances. She was also ambitious in a way that had always impressed me, driven by a need to prove herself that I'd found attractive when we first met. Diana, I said carefully, are you having an affair with Philip Ashworth? No. Are you planning to have an affair with Philip Ashworth? Rob, that's not fair. It's a yes or no question. Diana picked up her wine glass again. I'm exploring my options. Your options? Professional and personal. Meaning? Meaning Philip has made it clear that he finds me attractive and professionally valuable, and that those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I felt something shift inside my chest, like a structural support beam developing a stress fracture. So you lied to me tonight because you're considering whether to cheat on me with your boss? I lied to you tonight because I knew you wouldn't understand the complexity of the situation. Try me. Diana finished her wine and poured another glass. Philip's wife left him 2 years ago. He's lonely, successful, and interested in building something meaningful with someone who shares his professional ambitions. And you're that someone? I could be. What about our marriage? What about it, Rob? When's the last time you asked me about my professional ambitions? When's the last time you treated me like someone whose career mattered as much as your bridge projects? The question hit harder than I'd expected. I've always supported your career. You've tolerated my career. There's a difference. Diana, I've never asked you to choose between work and our marriage. Because you never had to. Your career was always the priority. The big projects, the important deadlines, the business dinners I attended as your supportive wife. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you rearranged your schedule for one of my work events? I started to answer, then realized I couldn't remember a specific example. Diana, if you're unhappy with our marriage, we should talk about it. We should work on it. We shouldn't lie to each other and explore other options. Maybe talking isn't enough anymore. What does that mean? Diana set down her wine glass and looked at me with something that might have been pity. It means Philip offers me something you don't. Which is a future where I matter, where my ambitions are taken seriously, where I'm seen as a partner instead of a supporting character. You matter to me, Diana. Do I? Or do you just want me to keep playing the role of the supportive wife while you build your bridges and assume I'll be satisfied with whatever attention you have left over? I restarted the recording app. Diana, are you planning to leave me for Philip Ashworth? I don't know. Are you in love with him? I don't know that either. What do you know? Diana stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at our backyard where we'd hosted barbecues and birthday parties for 12 years. I know that when Philip looks at me, he sees someone capable of more than managing other people's problems. I know that when he talks about the future, he includes me in it. And I know that when I imagine the next 10 years of my life, I can't picture them looking exactly like the last 10. So you're willing to destroy our marriage for the possibility that your boss might offer you something better? I'm willing to consider all my options before I decide what I want the rest of my life to look like. I stopped the recording and saved it to my phone. Diana was still looking out the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. Diana, I said quietly, what would it take to make you want to stay married to me? She turned around, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 14 years ago, vulnerable, uncertain, hoping someone would give her a reason to choose love over ambition. I don't know if that's possible anymore, Rob. Too much has changed. What's changed? I have. Diana went to bed first, claiming exhaustion from the evening's events. I stayed in the kitchen, replaying our conversation and trying to understand how 12 years of marriage had evolved into a cost-benefit analysis where I apparently represented the lower-value option. At 11:30, Diana's phone buzzed with a text message. She'd left it on the kitchen counter while she went upstairs, probably assuming I wouldn't violate her privacy by checking her messages. She was wrong. The text was from Philip. Are you all right? That was unexpected. Diana's response, sent from upstairs, I'll handle it. We need to talk tomorrow. Philip. My office at 9? Before the staff meeting? Diana. Yes. And Philip? Tonight was perfect until he showed up. Philip. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. I took screenshots of the conversation and forwarded them to my own phone, then deleted the evidence from Diana's message history. 12 years of marriage had taught me her phone password, a fact that suddenly felt more useful than sentimental. I spent the next hour researching Philip Ashworth. LinkedIn showed an impressive career trajectory. Harvard MBA, 15 years in public relations, divorced, no children, board member of 3 charitable organizations. His Instagram account featured photos of expensive restaurants, vacation destinations, and professional networking events. What interested me most was the pattern. Philip's Instagram showed him at social events, with attractive women from his office going back 18 months. Different women, similar poses, always professional in caption, but intimate in body language. Diana wasn't his first mentoring project. I found articles about Morrison Associates in industry publications. Philip had been promoted to senior partner 2 years ago, around the time his divorce was finalized. The agency had grown significantly under his leadership, landing several major accounts and expanding their client base. Diana's name appeared in 3 articles as a key account manager, always mentioned in connection with Philip's strategic vision for the company. Professional success built on personal relationships. At 12:45, I heard Diana's phone buzz again. Another message from Philip. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start planning your future. I took another screenshot and went to bed. Diana was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay in the dark, listening to her breathing and wondering when our marriage had become something she needed to escape rather than something she wanted to protect. My phone alarm went off at 6:30. Diana was already gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. We'll talk tonight. D. I called Morrison Associates at 8:45. Good morning, Morrison Associates. This is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is Rob Mercer again, Diana's husband. I wanted to apologize for the confusion yesterday about the charity event. Oh, no problem at all, Mr. Mercer. I was wondering, does the agency typically host networking events at art galleries? Diana mentioned it's become more common. Well, Mr. Ashworth does organize quite a few off-site client entertainment events, Usually at galleries or restaurants. Very sophisticated. That sounds like Philip. Does Diana usually attend these events? Oh yes, she's been included in most of the senior-level networking opportunities over the past few months. Mr. Ashworth values her input on client relationship strategies. I'm sure he does. Thanks, Jennifer. I hung up and called Mike Hardy, my best friend since college and currently the most cynical bartender in Boston. Rob, what's wrong? You never call before noon unless someone's in trouble. Diana's having an affair. With who? Her boss, maybe. It's complicated. It's always complicated until it isn't. You want to meet for coffee and tell me about it? Yeah. Starbucks, on Newbury Street in 20 minutes. Mike was already waiting when I arrived, looking like a man who'd spent the previous evening serving drinks to people with more money than sense. He listened without interrupting while I explained the gallery incident and Diana's confession about exploring her options. So she's not admitting to an affair, but she's not denying that she wants to have one, Mike said when I finished. That's about right. And this Philip guy has a history of mentoring attractive women from his office? Based on his social media, yes. Rob, you realize you're describing a textbook workplace predator, right? Guy in power uses his position to manipulate women into compromising situations. Diana's not being manipulated. She's making calculated decisions about her future. Same thing, different framing. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I stirred my coffee and considered options. I could hire a private investigator. Expensive and probably unnecessary. You already know what's happening. I could confront Philip directly. And accomplish what? He'll deny everything and Diana will accuse you of sabotaging her career. I could wait and see what happens. While your wife decides whether to leave you for her boss? That's not a strategy, Rob. That's surrender. Mike was right. Waiting wasn't a strategy. It was just postponing the inevitable while Diana and Philip planned my replacement. What would you do? I asked. Mike grinned with the particular satisfaction of someone who'd been waiting for exactly this question. I'd make sure that when Diana explores her options, she understands exactly what those options cost. Meaning Philip Ashworth's been playing this game for a while, and he's probably gotten comfortable thinking there are no consequences. Maybe it's time someone introduced him to the concept of accountability. I'm not going to do anything illegal, Mike. Who said anything about illegal? I'm talking about public relations. Philip works in PR, right? He should appreciate the value of reputation management. I left Starbucks with the beginning of a plan and Mike's promise to help implement it. Diana wanted to explore her options. Philip wanted to mentor attractive women without consequences. Time to show them both what their choices actually cost. I spent the morning researching Morrison Associates' client list and recent projects. Public relations agencies live and perish based on reputation, and Philip's agency represented several high-profile clients who valued discretion and professional conduct. The Henderson Group, Morrison's largest client, was a family-owned investment firm that specialized in ethical business practices. Their website emphasized integrity, transparency, and responsible leadership as core values. Interesting. At 2 o'clock, I drove to Morrison Associates' office building in downtown Boston, not to confront anyone, but to observe. Philip's BMW was in the parking garage, along with Diana's Honda. I positioned myself in a coffee shop across the street with a clear view of the building's main entrance. At 4:15, Philip and Diana emerged together. Not unusual for colleagues leaving work, except for the way Philip's hand rested on Diana's lower back as they walked toward the parking garage, and the fact that they got into Philip's BMW together, leaving Diana's car behind. I followed them to the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel. They went directly to the bar, where Philip had apparently reserved a corner table with privacy and ambiance. I took a seat at the bar itself, close enough to observe, but far enough away to avoid detection. Diana looked different than she had that morning. More animated, more engaged, more alive than I'd seen her in months. Philip was leaning forward, speaking quietly, occasionally touching her hand for emphasis. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could read their body language. This wasn't a business meeting. This was a seduction in progress, carefully orchestrated by someone who'd clearly done this before. At 5:30, Philip signaled for the check. Diana excused herself to use the restroom, giving me a clear view of Philip's face. He looked satisfied, confident, like a man who'd just closed an important deal. When Diana returned, Philip stood and helped her with her coat. His hands lingered on her shoulders longer than necessary. She looked up at him with an expression I recognized from our early dating years, when everything felt possible and the future stretched ahead like an adventure waiting to unfold. They left the hotel together, but instead of heading toward the parking garage, they walked toward Philip's apartment building 3 blocks away. I didn't follow them. Instead, I drove back to Morrison Associates and waited for Diana's car to be abandoned overnight in the parking garage. Confirmation that she wouldn't be coming home until morning, if at all. At 7 o'clock, I called Mike. "She's with him," I said. "Where?" "His apartment. They had drinks at the Fairmont, then walked to his place together." "So it's official now. No more exploring options or professional mentoring. She's made her choice." "Looks that way." "Rob, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to happen. Actually, it's exactly what I needed to happen." "What do you mean?" "I mean Diana's been trying to have it both ways, keeping me as a backup plan while she figured out whether Philip was a better option. Now she's committed to a course of action. And commitment works both ways. If she's decided to prioritize her relationship with Philip over our marriage, then I'm free to prioritize protecting myself over protecting her feelings." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Philip Ashworth has built his career on reputation management, and he's about to discover how quickly reputations can be damaged when people make poor choices. Rob, be careful. Whatever you're planning, make sure it doesn't backfire on you." "It won't, because I'm not going to do anything that Philip and Diana haven't already done to themselves." I spent the evening researching Morrison Associates' corporate policies regarding workplace relationships and professional conduct. Most companies have policies about supervisors dating subordinates, especially when those relationships might create conflicts of interest or compromise professional judgment. Morrison Associates was no exception. Their employee handbook, available on their website, specifically prohibited romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports without prior disclosure to human resources. Philip was Diana's direct supervisor. They hadn't disclosed their relationship to HR. In fact, Diana had actively concealed it by lying to her husband about attending work-related events. At 10 o'clock, Diana texted me, "Working late on Henderson proposal. Don't wait up." I responded, "Good luck with the proposal." At 11:30, I drove past Philip's apartment building. Diana's car wasn't there because it was still in the Morrison parking garage. But the lights were on in Philip's corner unit, and I could see 2 silhouettes moving around his living room. I took a photo with my phone. Not invasive enough to see faces or compromising details, but clear enough to establish that 2 people were in Philip's apartment late on a weeknight when one of them had told her husband she was working on a business proposal. Sometimes the truth is just a matter of documentation. I went home and waited for Diana to construct whatever explanation would allow her to maintain the fiction that she was still exploring her options rather than actively pursuing them. She came home at 6:45 the next morning, claiming she'd fallen asleep at the office and decided to shower and change clothes there, rather than wake me up by coming home in the middle of the night. "How did the Henderson proposal go?" I asked over coffee. "Really well. Philip thinks we have a strong chance of expanding the account." "That's great. You and Philip make a good team." "We do. He's been incredibly supportive of my professional development." "I can tell. You seem happier lately, more energized." Diana smiled, probably thinking I was oblivious to the real source of her increased energy and happiness. "I feel like I'm finally being recognized for my potential," she said. "Recognition is important," I agreed. especially from people whose opinions matter to you. Exactly. I finished my coffee and kissed Diana goodbye, the same routine we'd maintained for 12 years. Except now it felt like a performance we were both giving for an audience that had stopped paying attention. Have a good day, I said. I hope the Henderson project continues to go well. Thanks. I think it's going to be very successful. She was right about that. The Henderson project was going to be more successful than she imagined, just not in the way she expected. I called the Henderson Group at 9 o'clock and asked to speak with someone in their corporate communications department. This is Margaret Chen. How can I help you? Ms. Chen, my name is Robert Mercer. I'm calling about Morrison Associates, your public relations firm. Is there a problem with their service? I'm not sure. That's what I'm trying to determine. Are you familiar with their policies regarding professional conduct and client relationships? Could you be more specific about your concerns, Mr. Mercer? I'm concerned that Morrison might have conflicts of interest that could affect their judgment regarding your account. Specifically, romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates that haven't been properly disclosed. That's a serious allegation. Do you have evidence of improper conduct? I have documentation of a Morrison supervisor engaging in a romantic relationship with a direct report who manages aspects of your account. The relationship has been concealed from Morrison's HR department and involves deception about the nature of their professional interactions. Mr. Mercer, I need to ask why you're bringing this to our attention. Because the Henderson Group's website emphasizes integrity and transparency as core values, I thought you should know that your PR firm might not share those values. Can you provide specific details about these allegations? Philip Ashworth, Morrison's senior partner, is having an undisclosed romantic relationship with Diana Mercer, the account manager for your Henderson Group account. They've been meeting privately outside of work, attending social events together, and concealing the personal nature of their relationship from Morrison's management and from Mrs. Mercer's spouse. And you know this how? Because I'm Mrs. Mercer's husband, and she's been lying to me about the nature of her relationship with Mr. Ashworth while they conduct their affair. Margaret Chen was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Mercer, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll need to investigate these allegations and discuss them with Morrison Associates management. I understand. I can provide documentation if necessary. That might be helpful. Can I reach you at this number? Yes. And Ms. Chen? I'd prefer that Morrison not know the source of these allegations until you've completed your investigation. Of course. We'll handle this discreetly. I hung up and immediately called Morrison Associates. Good morning, Morrison Associates. This is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is Rob Mercer. I need to speak with someone in human resources about a policy question. Let me transfer you to Patricia Williams, our HR director. Patricia Williams had the voice of someone who'd spent years managing workplace drama and employee complaints. Mr. Mercer, how can I help you? I have a question about Morrison's policies regarding romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Are you an employee, Mr. Mercer? No, but my wife Diana is. I'm calling because I'm concerned about a situation that might violate company policy. What kind of situation? My wife is having an undisclosed romantic relationship with her direct supervisor, Philip Ashworth. They've been meeting privately, attending social events together, and concealing the personal nature of their relationship. Diana told me it was professional mentoring, but I have evidence that it's romantic and potentially intimate. Patricia Williams was quiet for several seconds. Mr. Mercer, these are serious allegations. Do you have documentation? Yes. Text messages, photographs, witness statements, and recorded conversations where Diana admits to exploring a romantic relationship with Philip while concealing it from Morrison's management. I see. Mr. Mercer, I need to investigate this situation thoroughly. Company policy requires disclosure of romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports specifically to prevent conflicts of interest and potential harassment situations. I understand. I'm not trying to cause problems for Diana's career, but I think Morrison should know that their senior partner is engaging in undisclosed romantic relationships with subordinates. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Can I reach you at this number if I need additional information? Yes, and Ms. Williams? I'd prefer that Diana and Philip not know I've contacted you until you've had a chance to investigate. Of course, we'll handle this confidentially. 2 phone calls, 2 investigations, 2 opportunities for Philip and Diana to explain their professional relationship to people who had legitimate reasons to question whether that relationship served their organization's best interests. I spent the rest of the morning researching Morrison Associates' other major clients. 3 of them had corporate policies that specifically addressed vendor conduct and professional standards. By noon, I'd made 4 more phone calls. At 2 o'clock, Diana called me. "Rob, I need to come home. There's a situation at work." "What kind of situation?" "Someone made complaints about Philip and me to HR and to one of our major clients. They're conducting investigations." "Complaints about what?" "About our professional relationship. Someone suggested it might be inappropriate." "Is it inappropriate?" "Rob, not now. I need to figure out how to handle this." "Diana, maybe you should just tell the truth about your relationship with Philip." "It's not that simple. This could affect my career." "Your career or your relationship with Philip?" "Both." "Rob, I think someone is deliberately trying to sabotage me." "Why would someone do that?" "I don't know. Maybe someone who's jealous of my success or who wants to damage Philip's reputation. Or maybe someone who thinks Morrison's clients deserve to know when their account managers are having undisclosed romantic relationships with their supervisors." Diana was quiet for a moment. "Rob, do you know something about these complaints? I know that you've been lying to me about your relationship with Philip. I know that you spent last night at his apartment while telling me you were working on a business proposal, and I know that Morrison's employee handbook prohibits undisclosed romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates. You've been spying on me. I've been observing you. There's a difference. Rob, you can't do this. You can't sabotage my career because you're upset about Philip. I'm not sabotaging anything, Diana. I'm just making sure that people who need to know the truth about your professional relationships have access to that information. This is vindictive and petty. This is accountability. You made choices, Diana. Choices have consequences." Diana hung up. At 4:30, Philip called me. "Rob, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "This situation at Morrison is getting out of hand. Diana's career is being threatened by false allegations about our professional relationship." "What's false about them?" "The suggestion that we've done anything inappropriate or unethical." "Philip, you've been having an undisclosed romantic relationship with your direct subordinate while she lies to her husband about the nature of your interactions. Which part of that is ethical?" "Our relationship is between Diana and me." "Your professional relationship affects Morrison's clients and violates company policy. Your personal relationship affects Diana's marriage. Neither of those things is just between you and Diana. Rob, if you continue interfering with Diana's career, there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "Legal consequences. Harassment, defamation, interference with business relationships." "Philip, I haven't harassed anyone, defamed anyone, or interfered with any business relationships. I've simply provided factual information about your conduct to people who have legitimate reasons to be concerned about it. You're trying to destroy Diana's career out of spite. I'm trying to make sure Diana understands what her choices actually cost. For 12 years, she's been able to have her career and her marriage without having to choose between them. Now she's decided she wants her career and you instead of her career and me. That's her choice, but she doesn't get to make that choice without consequences." "What do you want, Rob?" "I want Diana to be honest about what she's doing and why she's doing it. With Morrison, with their clients, and with me. And if she is, then everyone can make informed decisions about how they want to handle the situation." Philip was quiet for a moment. "This isn't over, Rob. You're right about that, Philip. It's just getting started. Diana came home at 6 o'clock looking like someone who'd spent the day watching her carefully constructed world collapse in real time. She poured herself a large glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table without speaking. How did the investigations go? I asked. I've been suspended pending review. Philip's been placed on administrative leave. The Henderson Group is considering terminating their contract with Morrison. That sounds serious. Rob, you've destroyed my career. I've exposed your choices. There's a difference. You called our clients. You called HR. You deliberately sabotaged everything I've worked for. Diana, you sabotaged everything you worked for when you decided to have an undisclosed affair with your boss while lying to everyone about it. It wasn't an affair. What would you call it? Diana finished half her wine in one swallow. It was a relationship that hadn't been fully defined yet. You spent the night at Philip's apartment. Once. That you've admitted to. How many times total? Diana didn't answer. Diana, how long has this been going on? 3 months. 3 months of lying to me about where you were and what you were doing. 3 months of finally feeling valued and appreciated by someone who understands my professional ambitions. 3 months of violating Morrison's employee policies and deceiving their clients about potential conflicts of interest. Diana poured more wine. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Explain it to me. Philip offered me opportunities that I couldn't get anywhere else. Partnership track, major client responsibility, real influence in the agency's direction. In exchange for what? For being someone he could trust completely. Someone who shared his vision for the company's future. And sleeping with him was part of sharing his vision? Rob, it wasn't like that. What was it like? Diana stared into her wine glass like it contained answers to questions she hadn't figured out how to ask yet. It was like finally being seen as someone who mattered, someone whose ideas and ambitions were taken seriously instead of just tolerated. I take your ambitions seriously. Do you? When's the last time you asked me about my long-term career goals? When's the last time you treated my work as anything more than a hobby that helps pay the mortgage? The question stung because it contained enough truth to hurt. Diana, if you felt unappreciated, we should have talked about it. I tried talking about it. You listened politely and then changed the subject to your bridge projects, or your weekend plans, or anything that didn't require you to think seriously about what I needed from my professional life. So, you decided to get those needs met by your boss instead of your husband. I decided to explore what it might feel like to be with someone who saw my potential instead of just accepting my current situation. And now? Diana finished her wine and looked at me directly for the first time since she'd come home. Now I don't have a career or a husband who trusts me. You still have a husband. Do I? After what you did today? Diana, what I did today was respond to your choices. You chose to lie to me, violate company policy, and deceive Morrison's clients about your relationship with Philip. I chose to make sure the people affected by those choices had accurate information. You chose revenge. I chose accountability. Same thing. No, it's not. Revenge would be trying to hurt you for the sake of hurting you. Accountability is making sure your actions have appropriate consequences. Diana stood up and walked to the kitchen window. Rob, I need you to understand something. What happened with Philip? It wasn't just about attraction or excitement or whatever you think it was about. What was it about? It was about finally feeling like someone believed I was capable of more than I'd achieved. Like someone saw possibilities in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. And I don't make you feel that way. You make me feel safe and comfortable and appreciated for who I am. Philip made me feel ambitious and powerful and excited about who I could become. Past tense? Present tense, but complicated by the fact that our professional relationship is now under investigation and our personal relationship is being scrutinized by everyone we work with. Diana, are you in love with Philip? She turned around, and looked at me with something that might have been sadness or regret or exhaustion. I don't know. I know that when I'm with him, I feel like a more interesting version of myself. I know that when he talks about the future, I can imagine being part of it in ways that excite me. And when you think about our future, I think about comfort and stability and growing old together in this house, having the same conversations and the same routines until one of us gets tired of pretending we're still happy. The honesty hit harder than anger would have. Diana wasn't just exploring other options. She was trying to escape what she saw as the inevitable decline of our marriage into comfortable mediocrity. Diana, if that's how you feel about our marriage, why didn't you just ask for a divorce instead of lying to me about Philip? Because I wasn't sure. I wanted to know if what I felt with Philip was real or just the excitement of something new and forbidden. And now you know? Now I know that it doesn't matter, because the situation has become impossible. Philip and I can't have a professional relationship or a personal relationship as long as Morrison is investigating us. What does Philip say about that? Philip says we need to wait for the investigations to conclude and then figure out our next steps. And what do you say? Diana sat back down at the kitchen table and looked at me with the expression of someone who'd run out of strategies and excuses. I say I've made a mess of everything and I don't know how to fix it. Diana, do you want to fix it? I want to stop feeling like I have to choose between having a marriage and having a career that fulfills me. Those aren't mutually exclusive unless you make them mutually exclusive. Aren't they? Rob, be honest. If I'd come to you 3 months ago and said I wanted to completely restructure my career, take bigger risks, prioritize professional advancement over financial security, would you have supported that? I thought about it carefully. I would have wanted to discuss it, understand the implications, make sure we were making decisions together. You would have tried to talk me out of anything that felt too risky or disruptive. Maybe. But Diana, that's what partners do. They help each other think through major decisions. Or they hold each other back from pursuing opportunities that might change everything. Is that what you think I've been doing? Holding you back? Diana finished her wine and set the glass down with the finality of someone who'd reached a conclusion. I think you've been loving me exactly as much as you're capable of loving me, and I've been needing more than you're capable of giving. And Philip can give you more? Philip could have given me more. Before today. What happens now? Now I figure out how to rebuild my career from whatever's left after the investigations conclude. What about us? Diana looked at me with something that might have been affection or pity or regret. I don't know, Rob. I honestly don't know. 3 weeks later, Diana was officially terminated from Morrison Associates for violating company policy regarding undisclosed romantic relationships with supervisors. Philip was demoted and transferred to a different division with no direct reports. The Henderson Group terminated their contract with Morrison, citing concerns about professional conduct and judgment. Diana spent her days applying for positions at other PR firms and her evenings drinking wine while researching career alternatives. Philip called her twice during the first week, then stopped calling altogether when it became clear that their professional and personal relationship had become a liability for both of them. I have an interview tomorrow, Diana announced over dinner on a Thursday evening. Hartwell Communications Senior Account Manager position. That's good news, I said. What kind of accounts do they handle? Healthcare and technology mostly. It's not as prestigious as Morrison, but it's a solid firm with growth potential. Did they ask about why you left Morrison? They asked. I told them I left to pursue opportunities that better aligned with my career goals. And they accepted that explanation? They did background checks. They know about the Morrison situation. Are they concerned about it? Diana set down her fork and looked at me directly. Rob, they're concerned about hiring someone whose personal life created professional complications at her previous job. What did you tell them? I told them that I'd learned important lessons about maintaining appropriate boundaries between personal and professional relationships. Have you? Have I what? Learned those lessons? Diana considered the question while finishing her salad. I've learned that workplace romances are more complicated than I anticipated. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. We finished dinner in relative silence, both of us calculating the current state of our marriage and what it might look like going forward. Diana had been sleeping in the guest bedroom for 2 weeks, claiming she needed space to think about her future. Diana, I said while we were cleaning up, do you want to stay married to me? I want to stay married to you. What does that mean? It means I love you, Rob, but I'm not sure love is enough anymore. What would be enough? I don't know. A sense that we're building something together instead of just maintaining something we built 12 years ago. We could build something new. Could we? Or would we just renovate what we already have and call it progress? The question hung between us like a challenge neither of us knew how to answer. Diana, what do you need from me to make this marriage work? I need you to see me as someone whose ambitions matter as much as yours do. I need you to support my career even when it's inconvenient or risky. And I need you to stop punishing me for the Philip situation. I'm not punishing you. Aren't you? Rob, you destroyed my career to prove a point about accountability and consequences. I exposed a situation that violated professional ethics and company policy. You exposed it because you were angry that I chose Philip over you, even temporarily. I exposed it because you were lying to me and to Morrison about what you were doing. Diana dried her hands and turned to face me completely. Rob, be honest. If I hadn't lied to you about Philip, if I'd come home that first night and said I was attracted to my boss and wanted to explore that relationship, what would you have done? I would have asked you to choose between your marriage and your boss. Exactly. You would have made it an ultimatum instead of trying to understand why I felt attracted to someone else or what that meant about what was missing in our marriage. Diana, most husbands would consider attraction to other people a problem worth addressing. Most husbands would want to understand why their wives were looking elsewhere instead of just demanding they stop looking. So this is my fault? Your affair with Philip happened because I'm not supportive enough of your career ambitions? My relationship with Philip happened because he offered me something I wasn't getting at home. Professional recognition, intellectual excitement, a sense that my future could be bigger than my present. And I don't offer you those things? You offer me stability and comfort and predictable affection. Philip offered me possibility. I sat down at the kitchen table and looked at my wife, really looked at her, trying to understand when she'd become someone who needed more than I knew how to provide. Diana, what would it take for you to get that sense of possibility from our marriage instead of from other relationships? I don't know if that's realistic anymore, Rob. Too much has changed. What's changed? I have. My understanding of what I need and want from my life. My willingness to settle for safe and comfortable instead of challenging and exciting. And you can't get challenging and exciting from a marriage to me? Diana sat down across from me and reached for my hand, the first voluntary physical contact we'd had in weeks. Rob, I love you. I love your integrity and your loyalty and your commitment to doing the right thing even when it's difficult. But I also need adventure and ambition and the feeling that my life is expanding instead of contracting. Those things aren't mutually exclusive, aren't they? Rob, when's the last time we took a risk together? When's the last time we made a decision that prioritized excitement over security? We bought this house. We renovated the kitchen. We planned that trip to Ireland. Safe choices, Rob. Comfortable improvements to an already comfortable life. What kind of risks do you want to take? Diana squeezed my hand and looked at me with something that might have been hope. I want to start my own PR firm. I want to travel more, take on challenging clients, build something from nothing instead of just managing other people's successes. That sounds expensive and uncertain. It sounds exciting. Diana, We have a mortgage and retirement savings and financial obligations. Starting a business is risky. See? That's exactly what I mean. Your first response is to identify the risks instead of exploring the possibilities. Someone has to be practical. And someone has to be ambitious. Rob, I need a partner who gets excited about my dreams instead of just tolerating them. I looked at Diana and tried to imagine supporting her decision to start her own business, with all the financial uncertainty and lifestyle changes that would require. Diana, if you want to start your own firm, we can figure out how to make that work. Do you mean that? I mean, I'm willing to explore it, research the market, develop a business plan, understand what it would cost and what our chances of success would be. Diana smiled for the first time in weeks. That's exactly what I mean, Rob. You're willing to explore it, research it, analyze it. But are you excited about it? I'm excited about your happiness. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Diana let go of my hand and sat back in her chair. Rob, I think we want different things from our lives. What do you want? I want adventure and growth and the feeling that every day might bring opportunities I haven't imagined yet. And what do I want? You want security and stability and the confidence that comes from building something solid and lasting. Those are both valid things to want. They are, but they're not always compatible. We sat in silence for several minutes, both of us understanding that we'd reached the point where honesty was more important than hope. Diana, I said finally, do you think our marriage can work if we want different things from our lives? I think it can work if we find ways to support each other's different needs instead of trying to change each other into people who want the same things. And if we can't do that? Diana looked at me with the expression of someone who'd already considered this possibility and reached a conclusion she didn't want to share. Then we'll have to decide whether love is enough to sustain a marriage between two people who've grown in different directions. Is it enough for you? I don't know yet, Rob, but I'm willing to find out if you are. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 14 years, and realized that the choice wasn't between staying married or getting divorced. The choice was between building a new kind of marriage or watching our current marriage slowly dissolve into comfortable disappointment. I'm willing to find out, I said, even if it means taking risks and making changes that feel uncomfortable. Even then. Diana smiled, and for the first time in months, it looked like she meant it. Then maybe we have something to build together after all. The story ends there, with two people choosing to rebuild instead of walking away, understanding that love sometimes requires becoming different people than you were when you first fell in love. No dramatic confrontations, no ultimate victories or defeats, just the quiet decision to try again with better understanding of what they both needed from their shared life. Sometimes the most important battles are fought in kitchen conversations over wine and honest admissions about who you've become and what you need to be happy. Sometimes winning means everyone gets to keep what matters most, even if it looks different than it did before.